What is up, everyone? How are you doing today? S.J. Anderson here. Welcome to this live stream, Lunar Eclipse and Taurus live stream. I'm really happy to be here with you. Happy to share this space with you. Wonderful what the so-called Aquarian age of air can bring us in terms of this kind of real-time interactivity. I want to, let's just jump in. What I'm going to do today is a general breakdown of the lunar eclipse and Taurus and its symbolism. What I usually do, those of you who follow have followed my videos, then I'm going to move into the electional astrology waning lunar phase. There's a couple of charts that seem interesting this waning cycle that I want to talk about and bring to your attention. Then I'm actually going to do a horoscopes for all signs, a kind of quick flow of kind of touching base with what each sign might be dealing with or processing here in this moment of the lunar eclipse and Taurus. So, welcome again, and let's just dive in. I want to start with the fact that we're in a long void of course moon. We're in that now. I'm recording this now. And let me see here. I guess she's just listening, not in the chat. Let me know if you think later if you see this, Jay. Good morning. Is everybody, can you hear me? I just want to make sure. Yes, so you can hear me. Okay, thanks, Jessica, for those claps. But this long void of course moon, there's some interesting conversations on Twitter about this because some of the more modern and contemporary astrologers are saying, it's not a void of course moon. What about Pluto and these aspects? And I think it just raises interesting questions. Just know that a lot of us out here in the astrological world are operating in the idiom of ancient system and the ancient planets. A lot of us have studied it. Thank you. A lot of us have, been involved in it. And so that idiom is also simultaneously operating with all kinds of other idioms and other features and other things. I mean, if you throw asteroids in, you're always going to have aspects every sign all the time. There's never a void of course moon. And so anyhow, from this Hellenistic ancient model, we're in this long void of course moon. What might that mean? Untethered and unstructured spaces, places, mentally, emotionally. I don't know how you've been. I stepped outside earlier and it was like just a kind of a dreamy mist here, and it was a really strange place and a strange time. I loved it being out there and just this kind of weird energy. I mean, that's one philosophy of astrology actually, is you can just embrace it, whatever it is. Like, that's the reality. That's the symbolic map, this overriding reality. And there's always something, I think, to be found and enjoyed here. Hey, Rebecca from Wales. Glad to meet you. I'm going to try to, I'm going to come to comments and stuff, but I want to kind of keep some flow too. So I'll look for those. I might say, if there's any comments, that you can write them in if there's some specific questions, but I wanted to come in. I had written this tweet earlier about dreamy, strange, internalized, and or trippy as my kind of delineation for this void of course moon. And, untethered and unstructured is something I wrote here. So just lean into that. If you're kind of wondering what's going on, I mean, we're in the middle of eclipse season. These are the land between eclipses. This is the land between eclipses. The moon has now moved into Aries, actually, at the time I'm recording this. But, give yourself space and permission to just let any kind of need to understand or control or to define. I think that's a good way to do it. If you're able to stay in bed. I did that yesterday for a while, and it's like, cool. Hey, void of course moon, land between eclipses, chill time. And and this is the thing about the lunar eclipse. I want to point this out, all quote unquote feminine signs during the actual lunar eclipse as well. It was during this Pisces moon, but that will also trigger during this lunar eclipse. So this would be kind of an entree into that whole conversation, but just keep in mind, what are those? Robert Hand calls these the negative polarity. There's all kinds of other terms if you don't like the genderized, and understand, gender can be problematic, but the notion is that there could be some kind of internalization with the experience. I mean, that's what water and earth is. It's what's around us and what's inside of us more than anything else. What happens at nighttime? That's my favorite way to think about elements. When you shut the door at night, most people are on a normal sleep schedule. Things happen inside the home, in the bed. We eat in our home, we dream in our home, we love in our home. All of these are the themes of these kind of more internalized spaces. And so just look for that as a kind of major tonality of your eclipse experience, because that is part of this eclipse experience. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, the Dune title, everybody, you're going to love Dune. I mean, I'm just like so enamored with Dune. I love Dune so much, and it's just perfect metaphors for this moment that we're in. And so I'm going to play some of my favorite clips later, or just some important clips that I think are relevant to this moment. Let's push and move here. Lunar eclipse in Taurus. We got to start off right away. with the 2024 UTC on 28 October, that's Saturday. So if you're in America, if you're in Mexico, South America, anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, this is going to be on Saturday. Those of you down under, those of you in Asia may be experiencing this early Sunday morning, but we're looking at this weekend as a major moment of the eclipse. It's always good to just get with the timing. So, you might want to set an alarm, and that way, if you're thinking about going out to those rays, that reddish moon, I don't know how red this one will be. I don't think it's a blood moon, but you can kind of question that. Or some people like to stay in. Some people want to go out and witness it. There's good calculators online, but there's the time for you. Always, this is the number one thing I like to do with any moment of astrology is, if we're focusing on the luminaries, for example, new moon or full moon, where are the rulers? That's just the first way in, potentially. It's maybe the 1 and 1A. I'm going to do 1 or 1A in the next slide, but this is kind of the way in. And so if we're trying to process what a Taurus moon that's about to be eclipsed may mean, we have to go to Venus and Virgo right here. Look at that lovely Earth trine. And then we have to go to the moon itself, because the moon is the exaltation lord of Taurus. Now, there are trigon lords or triplicity. Sorry, slightly out of focus. Dang. Hopefully, it's not too bad. I'm seeing it in sharply in focus. RC, how bad is it? Yeah, feminine, dark, receptive, receive, chalice. Love it, Krista. Is it really a rough blur? I'm not sure. Let me see if I can in focus for you. Okay, cool. That may be something custom to your situation there, RC. Anyhow, let's come back. And so there's two rulers. I call this whole sign rulership, because there's all kinds of rulership. There's face, there's Egyptian term, there's dodecamoria, or 12 parts. But for the whole sign rulership, you actually only have three factors to look at in any given moment of time: exaltation, domicile, and then triplicity. Because this is day or night at many places in the world, we don't necessarily want to or need to maybe bring the trigon lords in, but we can if we wanted to. I'm going to focus here on just these two major rulers, domicile and exaltation. But we know, as we talk about an eclipse moon, we're looking at Taurus itself, and then we're looking at Venus in Virgo as a kind of primary overlay. And the way I like to do it, so what do I have here? The particularity of struggle, Venus in Virgo. I say struggle because often Venus might have to struggle through those particularities. Of course, it has a wondrous upside, the detail-orientated celebration of life and beauty itself. There's only parts of Venus that you get in Virgo, so it's lovely. But it also might imply kind of struggling with the nature of Venus, just given, Mercury and Venus combinations can do that. You have the moon exalted in Taurus. We know that we're talking body shifts. That's the moon. Comfort, that's the moon. And there may be blocks or accelerants as the moon is eclipsed here with that north node point close there in Aries. And so right away, we can start thematically thinking in here about, this moment. And that's the way to go into any moment of astrology. Highlight some high level themes and extract those and meditate on those. And we're brought into very much earth element, body, comfort, particularized approaches to pleasure and body. And so the next way I like to look at it, and this is maybe one, okay, rulers are probably 1A, but the Taurus archetype, lately I've been a lot more into Sign-ology. I think there's a real genius in Sign-ology, actually. I'm kind of coming around to that, because embedded in the Taurus archetype is the moon and is Venus. So, and is the Mars, right? Look at Mars is the supporting triplicity lord of the earth element. And so you can think about, look at how martial that is. Even the Aldebaran, that star, the eye of the bull, you read those delineations, it sounds a lot like Mars. It's that force of power that you kind of stay with. And so what I'm thinking here is you can just always go to the archetype. There's beautiful art. The thing about Signological archetypes is there's a whole artistic tradition. Like, this is where we, you can really have this rich history of meaning that you can pull from. And then you can kind of find things within the archetype, like loyal. That's what Taurus is known for stereotypically. That's the moon, and that's fixity. Moon is loyal because the mother is loyal to their offspring quite often. If it, as the kind of the best of the moon, that mother's not going to abandon the kids, generally speaking. And that could be the lunar component of loyalty in the Taurus archetype. It's a fixed sign, which means staying with. That's also a component of the concepts of loyalty. Steadfast is similar to loyalty, but that also might just be staying committed to the operation, the material operation, whatever's going down in your world right now. And I'll just do this here. Look, actually, I'm going to do it on a later slide, but keep in mind Jupiter's in Taurus. the revelations, the truth, the justice around your Taurian is a very much mixing here with an eclipse moon. And there might be contemplations on kind of what are you committed to right now in that sector of your chart in terms of the Jupiterian, bringing a sort of wisdom and a propulsion and a kind of vision toward the wise within this sector. And you might define that as steadfast. Indulgent, you bring in the earth element because it's about the physical body. We usually indulge physically. I guess you can indulge with like dreamscapes or like sapio sexuality. I don't want to bring in that necessarily, but sapio files, people that are more indulgent with ideas. But usually we think of indulgence with the physical form, desserts, sleeping in, too many coffees, whatever that's going to be for you. And that's part of the signological rhythms of the Taurus archetype. I had the good fortune of seeing a cow this year, I think it was a female. And that thing was just laying in the grass. And then when I approached it, it kind of charged me a little bit. I triggered it. And it was that protective kind of lunar. But it was just hanging out, eating that grass and kind of just sitting there. That's this indulgent component that you can often see with these cows or sows or bulls or whatever that comes in to a steady eddy. It's that steady eddy that we can bring into the Taurian. But thinking about, again, body, that's the moon, the pleasures, that's Venus, the relationships, people that we indulge with, people that we are steadfast with or loyal to. Remember, Venus rules Taurus by domicile, and it's the planet of relations, one of the primary signifiers of that. But then this is an eclipse. So you get the Taurus archetype, but this is an eclipse. And so there could be inversions or propulsions unexpectedly around how we approach all of these primary themes. And that's how I would move into this eclipse space. You might want to, if there's breakthroughs, maybe you're going to stop eating the chocolate. Maybe you're going to eat a bag of it for the first time in a while and give yourself permission to take a break. Maybe you do the healthy, whatever that is, Chat GPT, what's the healthy chocolate? We can kind of have containers with the indulgence maybe. But, there may be all kinds of strange inversions as we are developing a relationship in real time with this unfoldment of the eclipse to our Taurian. And that is, again, the major theme of the eclipse moment. Okay, now let's go to another slide. Lunar eclipse in Taurus is the last of a series in this Taurus-Scorpio axis. You just have to think about it in this moment of time, because since 19 November 2021, think back, the first lunar eclipse in Taurus, the nodes were still in Sag, Gem. And there was that first eclipse that kicks off a whole cycle. And it's a roughly 2-year cycle, just under 2 years, that comes to end today, on this weekend. So there's something in your life, and just forget everything about your chart, the houses, everything. And you just think quickly, what's going on in your life, late 2021 to now? What kind of cycles are completing for you? If there's been challenges, maybe there's the promise of a new tomorrow or beginning that's emerging. You can think generally about Taurus, Scorpio, a relational, internalized, the ways we relate, all of the signological work I just did. Everybody's got houses, and we'll talk about some of that in the horoscope section of what I'm going to do today. So it's a great time to review the fated changes of the last 2 years in general and in this sector. And I like to bring in thankfulness, gratitude, relief, joy, awe, because it's over. I'm right. We be thankful it's over. It's going to be done. And then it's gratitude for the changes. I know it can be tough. Eclipse cycles can be quite challenging, but that could be over. But they can also bring things. I mean, I see a lot of people talk about astrology with a lot of people. I see eclipses being massively productive often. So this kind of fear around eclipses, I think, is less the idea. And it's more about the intensities and the shifts that they bring and the gifts they might have brought, or the new realizations, or the accelerated fate that the eclipses have brought you. There's all kinds of the Venusian and the Scorpionic are relational signs. And there's a comment here, after 2 years on closing the door on a lost love or heartbreak. I think that's a wonderful theme to be thinking about here with this signology of these two signs. What kind of relational changes have there been? Even if it's not romance, it could be other loved ones or other challenging ways we've learning to love or learning to relate in deeper and more profound ways. And it's the awe of reality. I mean, these eclipse cycles are like so shocking. It makes you wonder if this is some kind of computer program. That's how accurate I think eclipses can be. So I always like to bring a sense of wonderment and awe anytime there's an eclipse moment that we get to experience. All right, let's push. This is another way I love to think about eclipse themes or any kind of new moon or full moon and the thematics. You just derive the house. You put the moon, so it's either the moon opposite the sun or the moon with the sun, and then that's the first house. And that allows us to understand the nature of the beingness of this eclipse. Let's even consider the eclipse or the full moons or new moons as beings themselves, right? These are like entities in the sky. This is actually like an identity and an entity and a thing. And so you put the moon in the first, and you can then derive the houses. What it shows us is that you have the first house of selfhood. Okay, that's always going to be part of it. But where's the ruler? Where's Venus? Fifth house, pleasures and children. And it's Venus and Virgo in the fifth house of pleasures and children. I wonder how many of you have kids out here, maybe being with your kids. I mean, I know some of my mother friends, there's some challenges they're having kind of with Virgo in. Maybe the kids are sick. Maybe there's, helping the children with the details of motherhood or fatherhood or parenthood, that kind of particularized nature. I mean, childhood isn't just pure Venus, right? You have to bring the Virgo in to teach and explain and repeat orders over and over again. I mean, I remember I created havoc for my dad, all kinds of havoc. I don't think the Virgo worked. But again, you see how it's the fifth house. And this is the ruler of the eclipse moon, fifth from the moon. And so it brings in these kind of concepts. I think it also relates to the idea of the indulgence of the earth element, the indulgences, and how that's all the earth component. And when you bring Virgo into indulgence and Venus in Virgo, it does, I think, give us an opportunity to ride with maybe challenges to what feels good, because we've had to systematically kind of study, all right, maybe there's breakthroughs around, I don't like how this feels anymore. And you're going to try something new or shift out of some of the modes of pleasure and fun and joy and kind of reconfigure those in a bit of a challenging moment here with an eclipse with a Venus and Virgo. Okay. And I know some of you are Venus and Virgo lovers, and it's like, if there's any kind of negativity on Venus and Virgo, that's like slander. I don't mean to slander Venus and Virgo at all. I'm just trying to kind of honestly balance out the energetics of it. And more than anything, it's not like, oh, it is fallen, that's bad. No, you can reject that altogether to do great astrology. It's the Mercury and Virgo, and how sometimes that creates tension. All right. So I'm going to shift on. Oh, the final thing I'll just say is the nature of the shared fun. Remember, that was already reconfigured 2 weeks ago with the first solar eclipse in Libra. That's all about shared fun when you talk about the Libra archetype. And, Libra is about the order of things with people in our outer world and in our lives in the outer world. And, it is just hear what Krista said. Thank you for this comment. Where you talk about Venus, Mars shift from receptive Taurus eclipses to the action masculine. I've talked about that so much. I don't know if I'll focus on that here, but I do think, just to bring it in, that we had the active masculine side of Mars, Venus with the Libra eclipse. And this is more the outer world agreements. And now we get to complete the cycle here in Taurus, which is more the inner world of the relationship. And so just keep that in mind, like eclipse seasons are seasons of reconfiguration that are interconnected. This might be more of an internalized moment. It's because there are no so-called masculine signs in the transiting planets and masculine signs in the transiting sky. And we're just coming out of very much major reconfigurations on the outer. And maybe it's time to do inner processing. And now the inner eclipse processing is going to get eclipsed here in this moment. So thank you for that comment, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay, let's come back. And I'm going to say this now. I don't want to focus too much on Israel-Palestine. It's in the news. It's the major story. And it's like we have to look at it. And I'm only bringing it in from the perspective that one of the major themes here is children. And children have been victimized, there. Okay. And here's the New York Times headline opinion: in the Israel-Gaza war, we must not kill some children to protect others. And I think that's just a general thing we can all agree on. And I'm not going to say much more about it here, just about how devastating it is, as we have an eclipse where you're dealing with, Venus at fifth from Taurus, that is bringing up those themes. And anyhow, it's questions of safety and comfort, lunar themes. They're under pressure in this eclipse moment. I'm going to go off this slide now because I think about this might be, it's not that we don't want to see the intensities of the news, but some of us, it's just too much right now. And I think it's fine to kind of look away as needed, but I would encourage you to try to grapple with it, because this is part of the collective interconnected matrix of reality we're all involved in. And I will say, and so I'm going to shift out of this. I just wanted to bring it in. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but I am doing a monthly forecast show now on this channel, World Astrology Report, with my good friend Dan and Steph, my good friends. That's more of a mundane focus, and I think it's going to be handled elegantly in that November forecast is coming out soon. So just look for conversations there around it. The one thing I wanted to bring in was the geolocation of this eclipse, and just point out that you have the eclipse running right through Tehran. Let me see if you can see this here. I'm going to make this bigger. It's kind of hard to see. This one is a little blurry, but it's right here through Tehran. And then you have Mars running right through it as well. And both of the November new moon, the new moon in Scorpio and the full moon in Taurus also have Mars running right through that region. And so this is why I think we have to grapple with it to see it. I will always say, pray for peace, try to transmute, send love into the world, and just let's hope that the collective can kind of come into some sort of pivot moment here where we just can really respect the humanity of all beings and kind of love all beings here. And so that is just something I want to just speak on because it's part of the moment. I don't want to ignore it. Okay, back to the slide, and let me come to this view. This is where the powerful Scorpio stellium comes in, because you have to talk about this Scorpio stellium in the eclipse moment. It's exactly opposite the moon. The sun is always opposite the moon in a lunar eclipse, but you have Jupiter and Mercury and Mars very closely opposing each other and mixing very close to the luminaries. And Mars is strong, Mars is war, right? We're seeing the theme of war all over the world as this Mars gets power. And as these eclipses arrive, both of the eclipses had Mars in Scorpio, and it's a huge, huge theme of reality. I'm optimistic maybe that with Mars in Scorpio, we can kind of do war well, which means not fighting it, okay? That's part of how you can have a strong Mars. A strong Mars knows when not to fight. And I've seen some of the, I'm hoping that can kind of come through for us. Back in 91, when this Cazimi happened, and I'll talk about this probably in the new moon in Scorpio live I'm going to do, but there was peace talks in the Middle East back in 1991. And so maybe we're going to have some cooler heads prevailing and some kind of moment of peace here that can emerge because of the power of a strong Mars. Because of that, it's you don't fight when you don't need to. And I know there's splits in the tradition on it. Dorotheus of Sidon is like, look, Mars is strong. It's horrible for Mars things. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's, I think we're having to play with that, and we're having a front row seat to maybe what that's like currently. The true nature of war, death, and destruction is sadly part of these eclipse intensities. And I'm hoping again that this strong Mars, cooler heads can prevail, especially during the Cazimi, 17 November. I wrote here in a Twitter comment, a reply here, even with Mars powerful, Mars is Mars. So it may be more of doing confrontations well. And it may be as simple as a self-assertion, taking back power rather than scarier types of martial activity. Again, this is a major theme that will hit even maybe more significantly for that new moon in Scorpio that follows this as we come out of eclipse season. But I want to begin talking about the theme now because it's embedded in this eclipse moment. And it's very much a part of this moment because we have Mars as the final dispositor of the transiting sky. And that is this tweet. Mars is the final dispositor of the transiting sky until 8 November when Venus enters Libra. Look for that Venus entry into Libra to maybe take some of the edge off, where all of that work you've done during these two eclipses with Venus and Virgo ruling them, it's finally time to enjoy some of those laurels and like just settle into the relational steadiness that you've, basically we've all been forced to kind of work for and earn. I don't like to think about it quite like that, but just for lack of a better phrase here, the fruits of our struggles, let's put it that way, and our difficulties, there often can be those emergences that we kind of are given by the divine, in my view. But Mars is the final dispositor of the transiting sky. And there's a Cancer moon 1-4 November that will break it up. But basically until 8 November, we have this strong Mars, and it may bring with it themes of breaking free. That's what Mars is. Mars is breakage. That can often be uncomfortable to break out of things, or especially with eclipses, fated beginnings and endings. The final dispositor of this eclipse is that Mars. And it just might be, all right, I'm done. You're going to break free or break out of a relational dynamic and break into the new self that's being born here. That's often how eclipses can be, or it is letting go. There's endings. And a lot of people focus on the ending part of eclipses. I focus on the beginnings as much as the endings, because every ending has a beginning. And sometimes the beginnings are louder than the endings in an eclipse moment. But just know there's shakeups, and you may be navigating those right now this weekend. And you have a strong Mars to help. What did I have here? We may be forced to get in the game you're up, get comfortable in the uncomfortable. and this is the idea. I don't know if you've ever played sports. I was a basketball player in high school, and sometimes you're just sitting on the bench. I got benched at some point, and it's like your time in the game. Someone gets hurt, I had to be ready to go. It was my time. It's time to go. And sometimes we don't often get to even choose. Life just says it's go time, and we're forced to then deploy our skills and all the training we've done. And that might be part of this moment, that against our better kind of desire, we're forced to play and engage in direct confrontation. I don't mean that in any kind of like worst case physical. That can sometimes just be saying no. I remember one Mars Kazemi back a few years ago. I put in my 2 weeks at the job I had worked at for a long time. It was a moment where I asserted myself and my power, and I was like, no, I'm done with this. And it felt great and it was fine. But the Mars Kazemi gave me the ability to do that symbolically. We're already in that game, because in a lot of signs, Mars will become Kazemi or join the sun, and Mars has weakness except for that Kazemi moment. Here in Scorpio, Mars is already powerful the whole transit in its so-called chariot. And so I think we're already feeling into this Mars Kazemi story, and this lunar eclipse may force us to have an early arrival of some of this martial power that is embedded in the symbolism of the moment. So, okay. And these are the most difficult tarot cards in the deck. You see it often in film. There's that James Bond film where there's a tarot reader. And that's a cool one, by the way. It's really cool to use tarot. These really powerful gangsters have this tarot reader that leads them. And anyhow, in film, they'll throw these cards and it's always the ominous thing. I don't think about tarot that way. I mean, look at the Tower. It's freedom for these folks. They've been maybe trapped in the Devil card, and then the Tower comes to release people into freedom. That's the breakage and breaking free here. It's very useful, Mars, to deploy it to move out beyond some of the confines. And that's what eclipses do. They force us. They're like triggering fault lines that was already present, and we're forced to embrace our fate. And now we get a strong Mars to kind of help us as we break free. And of course, the death card is all about rejuvenation. You can see it here in the Tarot Marseille. You can see it a little bit here in the Pamela Collins Smith art. But there's growth here, there's new buds. And that's the cycles of life. Eclipses end and they begin. Things are being born with Mars. I mean, it's the tool, the gardening tool. Mars rules Virgo by supporting triplicity. It's a tool that you have to use, a sharp object to farm. And you're rejuvenating the earth and killing weeds so that there can be growth. So I wouldn't be afraid of these cards. This is embedded in the symbolism of how things are going. Her name was Solitaire and Bond. That's right. And I think it was the British actress. We'll have to look it up, but it's the actress in Dune, I believe. It could be her. No, it's not. It's not. I'll have to come back. And after the Tower comes the star, exactly. You land on the earth and you sit, and you're now able to pour that wisdom. It's that hard-won broke wisdom that Mars allowed us to break free into our selfhood. Jane Seymour, that's right, a young Jane Seymour. Okay, let's keep going. I'm not going to cover a lot of the other. I mean, look, we could sit here all day and go through each Egyptian term lord and try to understand. I'm just trying to cover the major energies. I want to bring in Jupiter. It's in the mix. It's right there with the eclipse. What is Jupiter? Truth revelation around these themes that we've talked about, the earth and the indulgent and the Taurian. That could potentially be a silver lining. I know some of my astro friends I've been talking about this with, and they're like, no, Jupiter's near the eclipse. It's horrible. My view is I'd rather have Jupiter blending than not. And I think that this is a story that's been ongoing. Jupiter hasn't been with this eclipse until now. And so we've all had the first fruits of Jupiter and Taurus, the first revelations of the truth and the wisdom and all of that stuff. And now it's time to kind of see what remains. And so I think we can rely on what Jupiter and Taurus is bringing as it's conjoined here. Look, both benefics are aspecting this eclipse moon. Again, I believe that is useful, and you want that, generally speaking. And so I'm happy to have them there. Saturn and Pisces, let's just come back. New trippy foundations. The wonderment of reality itself, all of that stuff with Saturn and Pisces. I've talked about it extensively. That's here. What is real? So that layer might be part of what's being brought in for your story. Venus, the exaltation lord of Pisces, and then Venus in Virgo. That's a sextile to the eclipse moon, and the Venus in Virgo paying attention to things needing care, even if it's off-putting. It's like, I don't know if there's an example, let's say you get ready, you go out, you go to the coffee shop or the club, you're going to mingle with people you want to like you or something. And then you go to the bathroom and you look in the mirror and, I guess for me, my glasses are broken or something, and it's like, oh shoot, you want people to like you, but then you see a struggle, and you might have to navigate on the fly. I think it's just accept the selfhood, or aside from the outer. It could be, oh, I cut my hand, by the way, Mars in Scorpio yesterday. I had an umbrella that broke, and it just kind of sliced my pinky a little bit. It's fine, but it was bleeding everywhere. That's kind of a Venus and Virgo thing where, it's like in order to be presentable in public, I had to like wrap it and cover it because there was blood. I know that's like some Mars and Scorpio too, but it's this idea of needing things that need the care. Even if we don't want to be having to face the things that need the care, we're going to be brought into that. But it's a trine. So you might be brought into needing to give yourself care of some kind. It's not really comfortable, but again, it's supporting the moment. By the way, and let me see if it's on the next slide. No, I want to just point it out here. Look what's happening with the 7 traditional. Every planet aspects every other planet. There is no aversions like with the eclipse in Libra. It was all about those aversions. This is a moment of major communication with all sectors. And I think that does intensify Venus over your Mercury. Yeah, I think it's going to intensify to have the planets sending signals and being able to communicate with each other. This may be the one where some of that confusion begins to abate. And as that land between eclipses ends here, this might be the one where there's some kind of synergy, I think, just in terms of aspects and how planets can communicate with each other. And again, so-called feminine signs, internalized, all of those things. Okay, let's keep going, almost to Dune. Here we are with Dune, coming into the Dune thing. Dune 2 was delayed. I want, first of all, to just let everybody know this. We were supposed to get to watch Dune 2 during this would have been the prenatal syzygy for the Dune 2 release, this lunar eclipse. And so it was eclipsed, even though Dune was canceled back in, these stories are from September and August. This would have been that prenatal syzygy. And I think whoever elected, I know they had electional astrologers. I'm certain they did, because Hollywood, I think it's embedded in Hollywood astrology. They saw the themes of this moment and realized that Dune is the story to bring in. And I'm going to do a little bit of that here in a second. But it's also just an example that sometimes the eclipses, they strike even before. Like, this is an ongoing thing. The nodes have been in this axis, their new axis. The eclipse cycle has been in Taurus since 2021. So sometimes the future swings back to the past. And this is one of those examples. I think the famous thing Chris Brennan talks about a lot is the chart of Vincent van Gogh. You can run zodiacal releasing on it after he passed, and it times all of the peaks of his career. Our charts live on after, and they live on before, I believe, because time is, what is it, a flat circle or whatever they say. So, okay, let's keep pushing. And let's get into this Dune stuff. I want to talk about just the theme here of Dune with why it's so important for this moment. First of all, it's wars over resources. And that's the opposition from Taurus with the moon and Jupiter there, right? This is all resources. It's like wanting resources, Jupiter and Taurus. It's indulgent, like I said earlier. And the whole story and the whole world of Dune, it's like wars over this stuff called spice, which makes everything go. And so you might think about it in your own life, or is there kind of resource conflict or struggle going on? And just consider that. What are you desirous of? And how is that complicating things? And how is that part of a power struggle that may be extant or operative? 2, the major theme of Dune is about stepping into your fate or calling. As Paul Atreides, who's like a boy at the beginning, becomes this major figure, the Moadib. We're going to talk about that. Mahdi, Kwisatz Haderach, or the Emperor. And so it's the story of someone coming into their fate. And all of these, the one scene we're going to look at, it's like fate, fate, fate. This is the theme. That's what eclipses are. We're shown what our fate is. Things get removed or brought in or inserted that, no, this is what you have to do. This is your life. Look for that in your moment here. What's happening in your life? Where is that fate coming in? And Paul has to surrender to his fate and let go. And that's one way to think about just this Dune 1 story. By the way, this is an amazing picture. Why can't I think of the director's name? I know it's Denis Villeneuve. I think he's a Canadian Quebecy. It's genius. He's one of the best filmmakers around. He's amazing. It's beautifully shot. The set design is amazing. It's beautifully written. All of it's just so profound. I encourage you to watch Dune if you haven't. I've watched it probably 10 times or more. I throw it on to relax sometimes, and I watch my favorite scenes. But we're going to watch one now. And I want you to think about Paul having to surrender to his fate and letting go. And this is a major way to embrace eclipse season. It's just take our hands off the wheel and just kind of, rest as we go into this and just surrender to whatever intensities are emerging in your life. Here it is.
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. A process that cannot be understood by stopping it. We must move with the flow of the process. We must join it. We must flow with it.
So there it is, a process that cannot be solved by stopping it. We must join it and then become a part of it, I think is what he said there. That is how I philosophically would think about eclipses, but even with the earth element, because we're dealing with the physicality, the physical formation of self with the moon and Venus and Virgo. There may be just kind of releasing physically into just joining this moment. I mean, I think about ways to, send that signal to myself that I can physically be in the present moment. Of course, you all know me. I've talked about this extensively. Mindfulness of the body, any kind of movement practice, I think would be wonderful now. And I would recommend even staying in one yogic pose. I like down dog, just stay in it for breathe 10 seconds. This is kind of a way to you can then feel the flow of energy in the body as we kind of still the body. But setting aside that, you might have stuff going on. I mean, I've talked to tons of people and people like where I live and stuff. There's all kinds of crazy stuff happening. Let alone the news and let alone the sad turn with global affairs. I mean, people are losing jobs, gaining jobs, breaking up, falling in love, falling out of love. I mean, these are the intensities of eclipse moments. And sometimes it's just, it's too much and I don't know what to do, and just surrender to the divine, God help me, and I think about eclipses as very divine. That's one of my favorite keywords, because think about if you had no idea what an eclipse was and you're just out in your day and you look up and the sun goes black. You had no idea. Didn't have any knowledge of it. Think about how insane that would be. And immediately following an eclipse, the sky turns black and it never has, and you've never seen it do that. You'd probably then go into some kind of profound existential crisis. And then as these ancient cultures, or at least the official stories about ancient cultures, they eventually start mapping them. And then they build things like Stonehenge just to map eclipses, or other technologies just to map eclipses. There's something about eclipses that is like the divine nature of the reality is shown. And when those intensifications come, there can be just this idea of a submission, or a saying, okay, how beautiful it all is. It's the awe that I spoke about earlier. Okay, let's keep pushing. Let me check in with some comments actually before I come back, because I can't play. It's a different screen with the videos. Yeah, Denny Villeneuve, going through the desert and transforming Soulbird's Nest, wonderful. I think that's the earth element, by the way. Thank you. Let me put this up. This is the earth element that I also thought was so profound with Dune as a metaphor right now, because it's all about they're in the earth. They're actually living in the earth. It's a movie about being in the earth and how fate unfolds against the backdrop of living the moon in the earth, and relationships that emerge. That's the Virgoan. It's all about the particularity of the earth environment. We're going to see that here in a second. And so it's like very Venus and Virgo. It's not fun in the desert. It's not Venus. But when you use Venus and Virgo, you survive in the desert. That's what I was speaking earlier about, the survival component of Venus and Virgo and how it trines this moment. We might need to dig into some of our survival skills. Even think about urban survival. I mean, I've learned in my course of my adulthood, I know how to like make a meal for like $2 and stuff. I mean, you can learn skills of survival, where to find things and where to kind of just grit out if you need to. It might be good to cook your own food during eclipses, or eat less, by the way. I'll throw that out. Sometimes that's a good way in, just to kind of, not eat as much and just let the body rest, particularly with earth element eclipses and earth element so prominent here. So, okay, thank you for that. The desert, it's a major component, and I'm glad, and I'm happy you brought that up. Quebecois, thank you. Again, I'm doing my best here. Okay, let me see. Let me come back here. I'm going to the next slide, and we're going to see one more clip. So it's the Venus and Virgo supporting these struggles, the trine from Venus and Virgo. And by the way, this Venus is in its own face. It's out of its Egyptian terms. And if you are in daytime during this eclipse. So that would be in North America where it's not visible. You have a Venus in Virgo in its strong as the first triplicity lord. That may bring even more of this supportive side of Venus in Virgo. But so Paul in the movie, it's not in the first one, but this mouse plays a prominent role in this first film. He basically ends up taking a new name as he joins these people, the Fremen, and becomes their leader. And he picks the name Moadib. And that's the name of a desert mouse that adapted to the harsh conditions of Arrakis, which is the desert planet. So it's back into this idea of adapting to the earth that's harsh, but surviving. And it symbolizes Paul's, connection to the desert and the earth, a major theme here. So I actually had a little bit here about the earth element, but check out this clip. This is relating to the idea of the mouse and adapting to your environment, even if it's challenging right now with this eclipse moment and this earth element eclipses.
Don't be frightened. Even a little desert mouse can survive. You'll need to face your fears. A friend will help you. Follow the friend.
You have much to learn. And I will show you the ways of the desert. Come with me.
Isn't that beautiful? It says, don't be frightened. It says, even a small little tiny desert mouse can survive. And then follow your friend and don't be afraid. And to me, it's just so much of the Venus and Virgo ruling this eclipse. Like, don't be afraid. This is the inevitabilities of life. We have to just flow with it. As James said in the earlier clip, that's the character, that's the friend. But it's the particularities. You saw that little mouse. It's kind of a Mercury thing, isn't it? That little mouse, it's just like Mercury. You can't see it. It's small. It's moving constantly. And that mouse has learned to survive. It's learned to find Venus amongst the challenges of the Earth environment that it's in. And I think there's something beautiful about this clip too. Find your friends. Mercury's friends. Mercury signifies friends. It signifies those social, kind of fluid social relations that we all have in our world. It can be youth. When we're kids, we're very social in schools often and meeting a lot of people. You might find a friend. There may be a friend that's part of this for you, that's going to show you or teach you or instruct you, with Mercury can be teaching too. It's, there's Jupiter teaching, there's Mercury teaching. Mercury teaching is like, here's the instructions. You might find someone emerges here, like a Venus and Virgo person, to give you some instruction to help you navigate and adapt to whatever the eclipse is bringing to you and your world. Okay. So that's the Dune clips. I wish we could watch it all together, but I'm going to keep the theme of Dune because it highly relates to the Cazimi of Mars and Scorpio later in November. And I'm going to have some more clips for that next live stream. So look out for that. All right. Now I am going to shift into, I'm going to pause before I do this. Actually, we're going to go to the electional astrology phase, do that quickly. Then I'm going to do some horoscopes. I'm moving fast with these horoscopes. It's just going to be me kind of on the fly. It's giving some quick advice. Hey, buddy. Hey, Carrie. Great to see you. And nice to see you, my friend Carrie. What's up? Let's see here. What else do we got here? Thanks, Doc. Let's see here. It was over 110 degrees, December 51st. Again, Dune vibes. Yep. Mercury friends. Yes, our Mercury friends. And this can even be for astrologers. And we have astrology friends, right, in the astrology community. And I know I've had a lot of really awesome relationships with astrologers. Astrologers tend to be very gracious people. And those of you who are in the astrology world, you might look for that. Look for some, reaching out to your astro friends that can understand your language. If you're processing your moment through astrology, there's people out there that you can share that with, and they can understand the linguistics of how you might think about reality and help you process it with you. Okay. Let me see here. Let me come back to, I'm going to shift out of some of these comments and just come back to these elections. Okay. The elections, there's two. Usually I just try to find one, but I wanted to pick out two here. Remember, we're at a waning phase. This is now the eclipse energy is waning. Some folks say as soon as the moon leaves the sign of its eclipse, we get refreshment. I think that's one way to do it. I think we'll be feeling some settlement here during this waning phase of the lunation, as then Venus comes here into Libra. By the time we have that next new moon, we'll have Venus in Libra, and we'll be officially out of eclipse season by that next new moon or full moon after the eclipse. So keep that in mind. That's going to be set. That'll be, I think, 13, 12, 13. I actually should have that date memorized. I don't have it here with me. The new moon in Scorpio date. It's like 13, 14, 15 November. But let's come into this moment. The first one I want to bring to your attention is this Cancer moon at home now. It was just eclipsed in Taurus. Now it's home. It's not eclipsed. It's not angular, or there's angularity to the lunar nodes. That's the one reason why this might be a little bit of an edge here, but it's still early in cardinal signs. I have here, I'm writing with early degree cardinal signs to escape Mars and Saturn hard aspects during this phase of the lunation, because Mars and Saturn are in fixed and mutable signs. So we need early degree cardinal, and that way we stay away from angularity to the lunar nodes. The Cancer moon applies to its exaltation lord. If you can get the moon applying to Jupiter here, you see this, and there's this looping mutual reception of two exaltation lords witnessing each other and applying to each other. And I feel like this ongoing moon mutual reception we've had for a bit here, as Jupiter's been in Taurus for a while. Healing, settling the eclipse energy, all those lunar themes that were under pressure during the eclipse moment that we talked about at the beginning. Now it's time to settle them. And so it's just kind of immediately we get an opportunity to just settle into your lunar. This might mean, let's say you had some family stuff. That's Taurus, right? That's the moon. And now you're kind of coming into some healing with the family, and everybody's kind of calmed down, and you're able to maybe just love each other, right? People we love. We fight with people we love, don't we? And now it's time to just say, okay, no, I love you, and help me learn how to love you better, this kind of stuff. This is all about the processing of the post-eclipse, Venus and Virgo challenges and upgrades and struggles. And maybe we can start seeing some of the real gains we may have made with all of these matters. But I like it because it follows up the lunar. It accentuates Taurus and Cancer, which is good after a lunar eclipse, where you had the Taurus where the moon was eclipsed, and then this other Earth sign that the moon rules by, night triplicity. All right, I'm going to shift to the next one. I don't want to spend too much on these, and I'm going to come back here to the second one. This is the one that I picked out. I don't know what Dan is going to include in our monthly forecast, but this one is certainly one that I bet he's going to have it in here because we talked about it. As Venus comes into Libra on 8 November, so it's this Venusian sigh of relief. Remember, Venus was reborn and purged. Venus hasn't had dignity in a long, long time. Since it was in Taurus way back in the first part of 2023. It was retrograde. It was ruling both eclipses while it was in Virgo, and that kind of challenged Venus, semi-challenged Venus, or that unique Venus that has its own kind of hurdles to cope to face. Finally, you get a dignified Venus. And I think this will feel like a major sigh of relief across our sectors of our chart, across mundane and interpersonal and everything. I'm really hoping this can bring some sort of diplomacy. My pronunciation sometimes goes a little strange, Mercury and Pisces, but diplomacy in the world affairs, I'm hoping. And in our lives, I mean, the settlement of Venus. What do I have here? Celebrating Venus's struggles and rebirth all year. And Venus is now, after ruling both eclipses, back in a big way. What is Venus here in Libra? Refined pleasure, support for creation, community, and relational rule sets being supported and relied upon. Let's not forget, Libra is a cardinal sign. This is initiation with the Venus. Maybe this is when you and your love finally express, your heartfelt desire, and you're now emerging together somehow in a new way, or just your family or any relational people you love, right? This doesn't have to be romantic. We love a lot of people. And I think this could be like a container for our love that emerges after everything we've gone through this year. And even after, even after everything we've gone through with all of this eclipse cycle in Taurus, I think that could be a way to look at it. What do I have here? Just know the moon joins Venus hours. So I've got 9 November, 10:21 UTC. It's that morning on the 8th of 9th November, within a day of Venus entering Libra, the moon joins to just give us maybe the best Venus and Libra moment we might have, because Venus is going to get closer to the South Node every day. And that might drain and intensify some of the Venusian natures of what it can do in Libra at times. Dan Waite's astrologer. I got a slide where I'm going to show you his picture, and you'll see here. So, okay, keep in mind, this is a lovely one. And remember, early cardinal. That's what I'm electing for this this phase of the lunation, because early cardinal is the one little place where the moon has some kind of safety. And both the Cancer and the Libra moon apply to benefic planets. And you see that you get a mutual reception in the first one, and this one you get a moon Venus application while the ruler of the moon is so powerful. So enjoy those transits, enjoy them. Okay, now I'm going to take a pause before I do this kind of fast moving horoscope part of this talk. And I just want to pause here and kind of close down. Some of you might not want to stay for those horoscopes. I mean, you're going to have thumbnails, or not thumbnails, but timestamps that I'm going to add into this live later. So you can just click for your sign later and come watch what I say. But just to pause here before I do that, here is World Astrology Report. Here's Mr. Dan Waite. Someone was asking about him. And he, he's a good friend of mine. And we're doing these forecasts now. So we had one, October 2023. The November one should be out here in a few days before the 1st. And I just want to say, we're putting a lot of energy into this. Like it's a lot that goes into it, a lot of prep and plan and forethought, and so I hope you enjoy it. I mean, it's for you, we're doing it for the whole world out there to try to really add as much value as we can to help everybody prepare for the month ahead and just help us process this crazy, insane world. The world is going into a wild place where we're heading into insane. I think it's beautiful, right? It's this beautiful inevitability of change, but that's the power of astrology. Like, we can engage it and try to use it to sort of help each other. And so I encourage you to watch this, because I know Dan's an amazing astrologer and an amazing media person, and they're good. Okay. So check that out in the next few days. Then on November 1st, I'm going to release on this channel my talk for the STA. This was the United States mundane presentation. And so I delved into the astrology of the USA during what promises to be an extremely dynamic period. And this was before the situation in Palestine, Israel broke out. It puts a whole new context to this talk, but I think you'll like this talk. And I cover a lot of stuff in it. I cover like my spiritual frame for this period, how I spend a whole segment on that, because that's almost, to me, the most important thing. How do you navigate as a aware, sentient being when the world is so intense? And so I talk a little bit about that vis-a-vis astrology, talk about some of the astrologers I like who teach us how to frame our reality vis-a-vis like divine unfoldment and the planets as divine, showing us and giving us access to divinity. So watch that. I encourage it. I'll probably release it right on November 1st. They asked me to wait till November 1st. That's why I've delayed it. So look for those two things from me coming out soon. And let me see here. Let me come back to... Here's my website. You can check out what I do there with my reading schedule if you're interested. And look, I love these graphics. These are on my website. By the way, anybody, feel free. You can go to my website, load the graphic, right-click, copy image, and paste it on social media. You can talk about this graphic. I kind of have it there so anybody can use it, because my website is right up here. So don't hesitate to deploy that. If some of you, I like it because it's how I think about astrology fundamentally, is I love the 7 and the 12. It's the 7-12 proportion, which has a whole other thing, but there's these kind of sacred geometrical and color and all of it. This is really how I think about astrology. This is why I built this, because it's how I want to see and process moments in time. All right, let's shift. I'm going to do these horoscopes. I'm going to take a sip of tea. And maybe before we do that, any questions so far before I dive into this stuff? Anybody have a specific question? Let me scroll back up here. And thanks everybody for the comments about Dan, and I appreciate it. And, let me see here. Thank you for all the good support. All right. So I'm going to come back down then and just take a sip of this. Okay. I could play some music, right? Go back on a little bit of a break, but I won't. All right, I'm just going to introduce these horoscopes, and I'll click to the next slide. What I plan to do is just run through. I mean, it doesn't take long. I'll take a minute or two on each sign, just share some thoughts about what I think might be happening, kind of on the fly, just riffing. So when I built this, I was kind of looking a little bit, but I think it's better just to kind of feel into a moment after a talk like this and just see what might emerge. And so that's all this is. It's just another added layer. I mean, I'm just going to say a little bit here, like, are horoscopes useful? I think a lot of people say, well, they're not useful, or they are. The reason why they're useful is because when I say for Aries, I'm saying, what's the Aries horoscope here? excuse me. And I say, you are an Aries rising. Many of you out there are going to be Aries risings, right? So yes, I don't have your natal chart and the specific story of your natal chart, which is the essential thing in astrology. We need to know what are your placements. And so without that, sure, this loses power. But without it, we can also begin to tell some stories that are probably somewhat loud, could potentially be loud in your life. I mean, just looking at where the whole sign houses and where the transits are happening house-wise for your rising sign can be pretty important and pretty productive in terms of helping someone process. So it just allows me to have a little bit more specificity for some of the audience out there. And again, you can select it with the timestamp and just go listen to your sign, and that might help you, navigate this moment. And that's why I'm doing this, just to help folks. Aries rising, there we go. SJ is STA releasing more talks from that conference. That is up to STA. I don't know. Honestly, they just asked me to talk. I wrote the talk. I showed up and gave it. The others, the behind the scenes stuff, I honestly don't really have any knowledge of. I ignored all those emails. I just was like, where can I go to speak? And then I kind of got out of there. I think some of the individual astrologers, I know I got the email that they said, wait until after November 1st. So some of them, I guess, may be releasing their talk or doing something with it. A lot of astrologers like to put that behind paywalls on their website, but I have a YouTube channel, so it's out there for everybody. And it's important. Actually, I feel that talk is so important that I wanted to get it out there because it really does help. It helped me seeing it, just kind of get a sense of how the next 10 years may go in terms of what the ride we're all in for. It's from an American perspective, but I think it can also be interesting global, given empire, right? America is the seat of empire. So, okay, let's come back. I'm going to just blaze through these. Let's start. Okay, Aries, what's going on with this eclipse chart? Here it is. And by the way, quickly, this is astroseek.com. Peter, amazing programmer. You can get charts like this very conveniently there. Love AstroSeek. So just a shout out to Peter. Aries rising. So right away, we're talking about Mars and the Sun as your primary planets. Look where they both are in this eclipse. They're in your 8th whole sign house. Money. Look where the eclipse moon is. It's with Jupiter in your 2nd whole sign house. Money. I think with Aries rising, the big theme is money and resources, even more than we talked about already. You might find that like your partner's income somehow has a new story and you're like doing well, or they got a job, or the shared assets that you have access to. There's some movement happening there and some support finally for a while. Finally, after a while, all the eclipses in Scorpio now, this is the season where there's kind of a movement ahead for you around shared assets, and then around how that might impact your resources. But remember, it's an eclipse. So this could be some final dislodgement around some of that. Rely on that Venus in Virgo. This is in your 6th of labor. This is in your 6th of work and labor. Maybe there's something where you're having to kind of finish out a job that you don't like, or you're seeing kind of, you got to do these tasks every day. It's necessary for the new money that you have access to and for those sort of resource expansions and changes, but that you're having to confront that during this time. Boom, let's move. Taurus rising. You have, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's all about your selfhood. Last eclipse in your 1st house. How was your whole period from November 2021 until now? How did you change? Remember what the 1st house is. It's why you're here. It's where the horizon meets the earth. It's where your soul came into this physical and material form to de-actualize. It's how you think about yourself, how you identify, what you might even wear, or appearance, or any sort of identity stuff. All of that's brought in here. And I wonder just about this eclipse being one more, little wrinkle that you're sort of settling with or navigating with, and then this is over. And so it's like, good job. You made it. Congratulations. And enjoy Jupiter. What I would say to you, Taurus, is enjoy the Jupiter transit until May 2024 to really expand into what these eclipses have done for you. You have like a lot of runway left to enjoy all of these kind of longer term cycles in the Taurian sector. And of course, it may be something related to partner and children or other people and creative collaborators. Look for that to be part of your eclipse story in one way or the other. I think you're going to have some opportunities with relationships that are quite powerful here coming in November to act anew or to kind of initiate in a different way. All right, let's move. Gemini. Yes. So Aries rising, hoping to win the lotto. Yes. Maybe play a ticket, go to ChatGPT, say, what are the strategies to win the lotto? And it'll give you like the mathematicians who have formulated what numbers to pick so you can increase your odds. That would be my advice to you. So, okay. So Gemini, what's going on with you? Well, where's Mercury? That's always the question. And where's Saturn? So you got Mercury in your 6th with Mars and with the sun. This feels like Gemini rising, some sort of new labor that has been placed upon you, or even health stuff. I mean, maybe you're seeing some kind of new health or labor or ways you're having to engage day to day to protect your body, yourself, or to maneuver with. And that's going to be a big theme here with Mars and Scorpio, and then your chart ruler there. I would encourage you to talk about what's going on, try to articulate even in your own mind. If you don't want to verbalize that, sometimes Scorpio can be less of a verbal energy. But this could also be home problems with home. I'm just going to come out and say that. Maybe with parents, maybe you're having to take care of your parents right now, and that's challenging. Maybe your home is just not as good of a fit, and this eclipse is showing you how you're having to kind of survive like that Moadib mouse and kind of thrive with those labor obligations, even though the home life is less ideal. 12th house eclipse, obstacles, challenges, all of those things. And I would encourage you to maybe retreat into home and just kind of, even if it's not perfect right now, you can rest and rely on parents or home life to get through whatever these new burdens have been that are placed on you. Let's move. Cancer. What's up with you, Cancer? So it's lunar. It's all that lunar stuff. We're talking 11th house. We're talking 5th house. These are money houses, but it's more like the benefits we get often you can see with the 11th and 5th. Maybe you've got some kind of gift that's being given to you, but there's a catch, or that there's something you have to, you're not quite comfortable with what's on offer, or that you're going to enjoy what's on offer, but it's going to take some time here for it to really show itself. As Venus gets strong later in your 4th, you get an angular, powerful Venus. That's going to help that 11th house settle. I would just pay attention. I would ride this through. You might want to not go to the group event this weekend. You might want to just avoid that and instead focus on maybe creating at home, maybe, doing some Mars stuff at home. Remember, Mars is the builder. It's in your 5th house, strong, the creative builder with Mercury. This feels like maybe a novel writing weekend, a Jack Kerouac set, 1 week long, write the scroll of On the Road kind of energy. I think Venus and Virgo can be good for writing, can help you edit. So maybe not quite Jack Kerouac, who he didn't edit that, but okay. That's what I would say to you. Nature of fun with groups, and nature of your group associations might need to, relax with some of that stuff. Find the friend, that Mercury ruled Venus and Virgo. It's that what Jameis was saying to Paul Atreides, who's the friend that can give you instructions? That might be your way through. All right, let's push. Leo. This is Leo. Yeah, I was looking at this earlier. You've got Leo. It's angular, and it's an eclipse in your 10th. This could be like a job climax, the job you get let go, you decide to leave, you have a realization that this job isn't for you. You have some kind of merger here where, moment here where it's just, you're having to grapple with workplace drama with the boss. And look where Venus is in your 2nd. So it's is the job paying you enough? Is the salary high enough? Do you need to change? Maybe apply for new jobs. Maybe you'll get a side gig. All of these things thematically could be part of this eclipse moment for you. And then, of course, the stellium where Mars is, you're dealing with home. So, maybe you're a realtor and interest rates are so high, and you're how are you going to sell that property when there's no bidders for those houses, when it's 8% rates or whatever it is? I mean, that feels like a Leo rising theme. Maybe you've just moved and you're settling into a new place, but I think the day-to-day resources around you, again, you might want to get Virgo with how you can kind of alter, shift, or sift through some of that stuff in order to grapple with these changes of home and career. All right, let's move. Virgo, we come to Virgo. Venus is right there in your 1st. Maybe you're going to have a new makeup routine. I don't wear any of that stuff, but there's beard trimmers and things that I can use that are new and that kind of can help with that grooming. Maybe you'll have a new breakthrough with those grooming strategies, new soaps. I mean, I'm going with 1st house Venus and Virgo. But this gets us into all of the earth signs for this eclipse moment are brought into what we call the God self trigon. I'm going to put it that way. I know creativity isn't there, but when you start talking about God, at least in some of the Western esoteric traditions, God is the creative energy, and then human beings have God inside of us. So we are creators, and that's where the fifth house comes in. And I wonder about for you, Virgo, new understandings here and how you want to approach the divine, worldview alterations, and how those are going to inspire you to generate as this eclipse hits. This whole through ninth axis is very much about, how we change our mentalities and how we connect to things outside of the self. And this feels very dynamic here. I wonder, I would never suggest psychedelics, but it feels like some kind of psychedelic infused moment where you're like coming out of it being like, whoa. And you have a whole new sense of how you want to operate or how you want to maneuver. So good luck with that. Of course, you could think about sibling drama or foreign siblings from a foreign land, and they're trying to get home for Thanksgiving, and there's some kind of drama there. This could be just a more mundane delineation. Let's push Libra rising. Okay, Libra rising. Obviously there's a major financial component here, and I don't want to talk just about bank account and like cash and paper cash and stuff. I mean, this could be about the resources you have available for you to actualize your needs on a day-to-day basis. That's what the second house can be. And maybe as Mars is so strong here, you're coming up with new systems to manage either time or space, or that navigate the materiality that either inhibits or doesn't inhibit. Mars is the militarized form of organizing possession. You go to an army barracks. This is what I always say. Is the army barracks messy? No. It's completely orderly and a complete clock of how to function. And so I would look for a lot of that for you, Libra rising. And I think you're still probably or Libras of any kind, you're probably still in a more of a cocoon phase and a retreat phase as you're waiting for your chart ruler to get very strong on 8 November. So I would say just rest and organize and prepare for, a more dynamic period in November. Okay, let's push. You have now Scorpio. Scorpio is a main player right now with the Sun and Mercury and Mars here, and then the Mars Cazimi on 17 November. I think Scorpio, if I was you, I would be, again, preparing for some major movement that you're going to be called into later in November. The eclipse moment may be about figuring out who you're going to roll with, how you want to maneuver in those spaces. If the actions you're going to take are going to be related to like a community. So like, let's just go with an astro community example. Maybe you're about to release a big project with other astrologers, and this eclipse is going to be some of the final, like, oh no, the details show which details are blocked or which ones need more attention, uncrossed I's and uncrossed T's in terms of some sort of group effort or action within a group setting. And that's why, see, you have the seventh house too. This is the partnerships around an endeavor in the outer world. So like astrologers often collaborate together. And I'll say this here too, that if you're an astrology student or astrologer, look for some people to collab with, find the others. You might say this could be a great moment if you're Scorpio rising for that. Libra rising, try to expand. Doing crafts this weekend. Let me just come up here. I know this isn't for Scorpio rising. I'm just going to say I think that's a wonderful way with Venus and Virgo. Just do your crafts. It's like I see those people that do the knitting. That's like a Mercury thing and a Mars thing. Mars and Mercury co-president Scorpio, sextile Venus in Virgo. Perfect craft, making some hats or socks or whatever that is. Okay. Yeah, Libra rising, couldn't get a loan for the business. See, those were eclipses in your 8th, second house. You're coming out of that, and you may want to try that again here in 2024 or figure out new ways to get funding that might assist you with that. Scorpio ascendant, pray. Yeah, always pray. I mean, I wonder how much of that comes in with this Cancer moon with Scorpio ascendant. The moon rules the 9th, and it's right here. It might be praying with others, right? Praying with others. Group prayer and community prayer is a beautiful thing. I've done a lot of that, like we did mantra together or japa together in the yogic schools. That could be a way into this, just even sitting with people like that you love and that love you, and not even like the prayer, just through that symbiotic shared understanding of other people. I think that's a big part of the Scorpio rising moment. And Scorpio rising, you're finishing out a primary eclipse cycle of self and other. and enjoy what's changed for you, because this is also announcing the end of those intensities. And it's a new you and a new relationships, potentially new ways to relate to the relationships in your life. It's so beautiful. Okay, let me come back to, let's keep pushing. What about Sagittarius? Sagittarius rising. You have Jupiter in your 6th. How's health stuff going with Jupiter and Taurus since May? Any new revelations, new diets, new health revelations where you're like, okay, no, maybe you need to not be as Taurian. Maybe you need to drink more water or eat more vegetables. Do one of those diets where it's like you can eat as much as you want, but only certain foods. Some of the intermittent fasting, where you eat anything you want, but you just don't eat during certain hours. Maybe it's just an example. If that's been part of your Jupiter and Taurus revelations, now that the eclipse is here, you might have to let go or shift out of some of that stuff with this Taurus eclipse, the only Taurus eclipse in 2023, and the first and only Taurus eclipse since Jupiter's entered Taurus. So I think it's intimately connected to how the self is expressing through the 6th house during this time. Of course, we could go work and labor and how you're balancing maybe work-life balance stuff. Look, there's major obstacles with Mars here. You might be drawn into some kind of battle or some kind of drama potentially. And if that's the case, I love that you have Venus right here in Virgo. You may want to try to think about what's good for your legacy. Like often when drama happens, and this is in the astrology world, I like to think about what's good for astrology. Like, it's not about me and my little opinions or someone else's little version that I might not agree with. Like, how do astrologers need to comport themselves in a community so that's good for us in the long term? You might be thinking about that. Like, what are you here to make or do? And that might help you navigate some of those tensions. All right, let's shift. Capricorn. Where are you, Capricorn? You are here. Where is Saturn? So we're finally talking a little bit about Saturn and Pisces in this live. What's going on with your siblings? What's going on with your close circle of friends? What's going on with your, local communities? Maybe there's something here that as this eclipse arrives, you're brought into more like children. I don't know if there's children in your life, but your community orientation around the children that are in your world. Maybe that's what you're going to be brought into, or even ways of fun or creativity. If that's not part of your world, is there some sort of community creativity that this eclipse might either invert or accelerate or propel? Or coming out of this eclipse, you're like, whoa, there's that little gallery down the street. They're looking for a in-house astrologer. So like, if it's for me, that's not real, by the way, but just an example. Like whatever you do, maybe after this eclipse is going to propel you into some kind of new relationship as you're laying new foundations in your 3rd house. And then again, this whole community fun thing, which was the same thing that we saw with Cancer risings. I think you may be with this Kazemi coming up. Maybe you've got a group of people that after this eclipse really have clarity on how they want to maneuver in terms of a shared endeavor in the outer world with a group of people. Okay, let's keep pushing. We've got Aquarius rising. Again, we're back to Saturn. Now, this is all about money. Now, the new foundations of resources that you're going to have to undergo in from March 2023 to February 2026. And as an eclipse hits in your career sector and in your home sector, this angular eclipse, this feels really, really dynamic for you, Aquarius rising. I know that, remember, this was the main theme of 2022. I think this harkens back to some of the 2022 moments where we had eclipses in this axis all year squaring Saturn. And so now Saturn has moved out of Aquarius, but this is the final eclipse with this axis. And there's so much happening in 10-4. I almost feel like this is a chance to, maybe feel a little bit about things that were going on last year, but it's going to actually show you that it's not last year. Actually, Saturn's out of Aquarius. That's all those stories have been put to bed a long time ago. And then Jupiter's here now to assist. And Venus is making in this chart the sextiles and trine. So it's a whole different configuration to Scorpio Taurus, actually, in some major way. Lunar nodes aren't in the axis and Saturn isn't squaring. I actually like this, Aquarius rising. I would just encourage you to think about what career maneuvering will be happening in November on the back of this eclipse. And maybe you're learning something about like roots and parents and history that can sort of help you as you define your legacy here later in the month in November. Okay, final sign, Pisces. What's going on with you, Pisces risings? Well, Saturn is right in your 1st. How serious have you been since March? Are you taking yourself a little bit more seriously? Maybe you're kind of able to let go of some of the dreaminess to the extent you want to, and maybe kind of practicalize or practicalify here a little bit. I think it's all about, again, the beliefs. Remember how we talked earlier about the 9th, the 1st, and the 5th as the self and spirit houses? You get some of that Pisces rising, and you may be actually clarifying. Remember where Saturn is. It's in the degree of its direct station. It will station direct 7 days after this eclipse. It's a profound moment actually for you right after this eclipse in terms of who do you want to be and what are those foundations that are being laid. This eclipse allows you to have some kind of spiritual outreach or learning or reading or studying all of November as this station's direct and Mars Cazemis. And you might find that, it's like your routines of spirit are eclipsed here. Maybe you were praying a certain way, meditating a certain way, and you realize, hey, you don't need that actually. You can just do this breath work, cut your time in half, and you actually feel better connected to God. I think sometimes the routines we get locked into, fixed third house, spiritual routines, I would question some of those spiritual routines if I were you, and I would try to maybe open up to some new ones. Okay, that's it. All right, I'm going to just kind of wind down here. Anything else? Any thoughts or questions maybe about your specific rising before I go? I can answer those, and if not, I'm just going to kind of wind down, and we're going to end this puppy. Anything out there? All right. Well, I'm going to just say thank you very much. Great to be here with you. I really like this idiom of talking about astrology. It kind of works for me in terms of just showing up and getting excited and passionately kind of sharing it. So thank you all for joining me here. Always check your the timestamps when this is going to go in my YouTube live tab, and then those timestamps you can just go back through and click on whatever you want to watch. I'm going to kind of make sure that those are labeled properly here in the next few hours. Very welcome. Thank you, Nicola. Nicola, thank you so much. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you. Better not be around people this weekend at all. Cancer rising. Let's see, Diana. I would just say, I think you may want to just be with your creativity. And feel into Scorpio Mars, and be with both your creativity and I think it's possible people may invite you to do stuff, and I personally am going to stay skeptical of any kind of invitation that night. I probably will, unless it's someone I really care about and I trust and that I know can have container, then I might venture out a little bit. I was doing that it wasn't during the eclipse, but some of this in between eclipse zone, I accepted some invitations and had some really lovely intimacy with people that I'm close with. And it was trusted people. I wasn't out, in vulnerabilities that maybe were questionable. So not that would be bad if someone chose to do that. I mean, people can do all sorts of stuff, but me personally, I would probably try to focus on that 5th house. Remember, 5th house is below the horizon. Here, I can go back to Cancer here. But 5th house is, you can see it below the horizon. And this is very much about what's Scorpio? I mean, Scorpio is your feeling. It's the way that Mars is best operative when we actually have alignment with what we believe or what we know to be true. When we come back to eclipses being about fate, you have the notion that you might have some of the fate clarified for you. Here's that moon, your chart ruler being eclipsed, fate clarified, but it can reverberate back into how you want to generate, because this is going to be over, but Mars remains there, powerful. So that's what I would say for you. Being around people, maybe just rest and focus on those other things. Okay. You got invitations to play harp and lots of big group stuff. Yeah. I would just, honestly, you can do other divination. That's sometimes what I like to do with astrology. The astrology tells us that it could be intensified. So if you were to say yes, just know there's an eclipse, and if things get strange or things are this is eclipse stuff hitting, at least you'll know. But maybe you have other forms of divination that can help you answer the yes or no. So, okay, I'll answer just a couple of more. What if this is your nodal reversal? Yeah, it means that in your chart, the house topics of where your nodes are, there's some major thing happening during this period that's teaching you about your long-term fate in this lifetime that relates to those house topics. The reversal might mean it's a little bit of an edge to it rather than a kind of full alignment period, is just what I've seen. Okay. Laylo, great vid. Thanks for all the work. Very welcome. Thank you. Would you look at your progressed ascendant and chart? I'm going to just say this here, K Harmony. Let me just put this up. Look, we can look at thousands of techniques. I can look at a draconic. I can look at solar arc directions. I can look at, distributions through the bounds of the ascendant. There's many, 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 many techniques. I'm just showing you what I like and what I use. Yeah, progressions are great, but my experience is that they are just additive. It's not like it's either or. So yeah, put your progressions on and see how your progressed ascendant is. Go to your natal chart, see where your progressed ascendant is, see how that might relate to the eclipse is one way to do it. I think you won't, if you didn't do that, I think you can still have a lot without that can help you navigate. And, just keeping in mind, I think there's something with technique overload, and eventually we kind of settle on what we really, really like and what we really, really use. Certainly progressions are a part of that for a lot of people. Any wise words for Libra rising? Yes, Tahia, just come back into the timestamp. I did a whole section on that. It's all faded. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, yeah, watch Dune. I'm going to put it back on. I've been watching it here. And all right, I'm going to end it there. Hey, everybody, peace out. Take care. Talk soon. And great to see you. Bye-bye.